Michael McBride, host of Veritas Views. Thanks for joining us. Here's a modern problem hiding inside an old movie. We live in a world where access has become a product. Faster replies, more availability, premium service, concierge, everything. And sometimes that sounds like care, but sometimes it turns into a relationship where boundaries disappear, expectations inflate, and dependency gets rewarded. Today's episode is about what happens when access becomes a currency and how families and systems get pulled into patterns that feel like loving but function like pressure. First, in That Would Never Work in Therapy, we go to an old classic, What About Bob? It's funny because it's exaggerated, but the dynamic is real. Constant contact, escalating dependence, a clinician getting pulled into personal life, and a boundary frame that collapses. We use that story to ask a very current question. With the growth of concierge medicine, including concierge-style therapy, are we building models that encourage more Bob behavior? And what does ethical, effective boundary setting look like when the market is literally selling access? Then we jump into Am I the Asshole, where parents disagree about what their daughter needs. Mom wants dad to call the school and demand that their child be included in the talent show. Dad thinks some measure of disappointment and failure is important and doesn't want to fight the institution on principle. It becomes a conversation about values, protection versus resilience, and what repair looks like when two parents are essentially think they're doing the right thing and still end up in conflict. And finally, two therapists we walk into a modern family arena, the group text, the place where tone gets misread, old roles get reactivated, and one comment can light the fuse. We talk about how to navigate a potentially toxic group text, how to extract yourself without detonating relationships, and what the mechanics are when communication is constant and public. 3 segments, 1 thread, boundaries, access, and how to stay connected without being consumed. Let's get into it.
Well, let's jump into it with one of my favorite new segments, which is That Would Never Work in Therapy, which is where
I do
we
like this one.
take a pop culture classic where a patient, in this case, becomes consumed with a therapist's life, has constant contact, 0 boundaries. The therapist is getting pulled into personal relationships. What do you got, Gail?
Gail's gone.
I don't know what happened
not
to her.
watching
She
on video.
disappeared.
Gail's disappeared.
I got my goldfish.
Yes, there features a goldfish. Dan is still piecing it together. But in this case,
Goldfish name is Bob.
Oh,
Oh.
I have. It's funny because patients, clients of mine have often mentioned the movie What About Bob, and asked me my thoughts or opinions on it. And I have thus far in my life made it at the age of 61 and successfully avoided seeing the movie. And I say successfully avoided because it is intentional.
well,
That?
so
I
let me-
understand that. I understand it's Bill Murray and that he is a national treasure.
Yes, he's amazing.
And at the same time, I have made the affirmative decision, and I do this with a lot of films and TV shows with psychologists in them. I make the affirmative decision not see them because I hate the way we're portrayed. And at the same time, I know it's great, and I know Bill Murray is a national treasure, and I admit freely that this is a flaw in my personality structure. It is
I wouldn't
both
say it's a
egosyntonic
flaw.
and
I think you
egosyntonic.
demonstrate very good boundaries and good clarity about self, right? And in my defense, Richard Dreyfuss is a psychiatrist. I do feel like psychiatry has like a different level of understanding of our boundaries, but neither here nor there.
People always mix up psychiatry and psychology, and that's annoying. And
family can't.
I have successfully avoided seeing the film. I'm 61. I got to make it hopefully another. I'm really hoping that I can avoid the movie for another 30 years and then maybe watch it when I'm 91 in hospice or something. But so far I've successfully avoided it, and I plan to continue to.
Well, my 80-year-old self will be there to push play on the VCR for you.
Fair enough.
Okay, let me give you additional context to refresh your memory.
Context.
And the reason...
refresh. There's nothing to refresh here. He has no memory, and this is not a comment on his self-proclaimed dementia. This is because he's never seen the movie.
I know. So
what am I going to know?
I'm going to shape it for him, and you'll help him along. But really, the reason that
wait. You're going to oversell my ability to remember this movie. While I have seen it, when did it come out, Michael?
I want to say like
I'm going to guess
86 or 87.
1996, but I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
it's definitely earlier than that.
I think I saw it on VHS in maybe the late 80s, early 90s. So it's been a minute.
Yeah, it came out in 1991.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So,
All right.
okay, so the reason that I wanted to choose this one is, I mean, you watched the movie. I remember watching the movie probably when it first came out or
I don't.
thereabouts, and it seems ridiculous. However, with the growth of concierge medical care and psychological care, I think it is an interesting conversation. So that's kind of the
Mm.
lens. But let me give you.
Wow.
I'll paint a little picture for you.
Okay. Paint
Which
away.
is Bob, an intensely anxious client, starts escalating his contact with Dr. Marvin beyond anything appropriate. He calls repeatedly, shows up uninvited, and eventually inserts himself into Marvin's personal life, including vacations and family time. The bit is that Marvin keeps getting pulled in, losing professional distance and reacting emotionally, while Bob treats the therapist like a caretaker and an attachment figure rather than a clinician.
I know more about it than I need to already.
So I'm curious, like, especially in the wake of all the concierge medical care options, what are those clinical boundaries like? What's being violated? Why do we need those boundaries? And unpack it.
And Gail and I provide some level of concierge care, and which means that if someone is having an issue in between visits, we do respond to outreach via messaging. We might set up a phone call. We might set up a Zoom call, although we don't use Zoom, but everyone calls it that.
It's like Kleenex.
It's like Kleenex, exactly. It's like Kleenex. We might set up a Zoom call. However, at all times, the question is, what's serving the client's needs at that moment, and within the clinical appropriateness of that call. So you don't want to foster dependency. And at the same time, you want to be present for the person in a way that's a higher level of care than, hey, we'll talk about this at your session next week. And it's up to the therapist to maintain those boundaries. And without seeing the movie, like clearly Dreyfus doesn't maintain his therapeutic boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. My memory of the movie is he gets drawn in a bit more personally because he is annoyed, right? And so then we would have some countertransference happening where he's losing some of his objectivity.
Define that.
Oh, thank you. Countertransference, which is the feelings that sometimes therapists hold about what's going on in the room or about a particular client. So transference being the feelings they have about us, countertransference being the feelings we have about them. And that happens, and that's a normal thing. But in our training, we are taught to be aware of that, to talk about it, to process it. And if it in some way clouds our ability to be clinically appropriate and present for the client or the patient, then we need to take steps to remedy that. And that might include distancing ourselves from the case and helping make a referral to a clinician that can better manage that. So in this case, I think the countertransference and his annoyance starts to show, and he is trying to convince everyone around him of this narrative and is feeling overshadowed because Bob is in some ways more likable, and the more Dreyfus is giving in to his countertransference, the more likable Bob seems, so people want to keep him around. Like, this gets really, kind of muddy in the movie. Right. Our job is to manage that and to say, hey, this amount of contact is really a clinical issue. Let's talk about the clinical issue here and keep it at a clinical level, make it an opportunity for an intervention, as opposed to just trying to push him away, which is activating this particular character more, right? It actually increases the reassurance seeking instead of helping to manage it in a clinical way. So I think this is problematic, and I like the lens that you're asking about it in terms of the concierge medicine, because concierge medicine and psychological care sort of pulls for this idea that you have unfettered access to your clinician, but you don't.
Wait. No, go ahead. Sorry. I'll let you finish.
Not in that totally available kind of way. While we are responsive, we're really responsible to think about what is the most clinically appropriate intervention for this individual. So let's say you're between sessions and someone says, hey, I'm having a real total shit day. I really, I need to talk something through with you. fine. Concierge medicine would say, sounds like you need something in between. And we would decide clinically how much contact is appropriate. Is this a 10-minute little chat through? Is this a full extra session that we're going to find time in our schedule for? Right. But it is not then to serve our own ego or needs, or, we got to be careful not to be swooping in and caretaking
Right.
or snow plowing for this person, right?
And,
So there's some decision making that's happening as we provide that care in the concierge model.
and this comes up even in non-concierge medicine
Mhm.
with psychology. People will ask, like, how frequently do you see your clients, or how long are your therapy sessions? And the therapist is like, well, I won't see a therapist. I'll see my clients. I see all my clients once a week. And I'm like, no, because that's not necessarily everyone's need. And we should be seeing people at a frequency that is driven by clinical need and by and what's rather than by some predetermined frequency. In the same way, if the person calls and is engaged in kind of concierge level of treatment, we would do what is clinically appropriate. However, if the person needed to talk to me every single day, they probably need a higher level of care. They probably need an intensive outpatient program or a partial hospitalization program, something like that, if they need to have that daily contact in order to stay safe and healthy. However, if they needed to process things a few times a week, or then have a brief touch base in order to work through stuff, absolutely, that might be part of concierge medicine.
For a defined period of time, right? Again,
Right,
if this is something that is chronically going on for months and months, we might be asking ourselves, what is the appropriate level of
right.
care? I think where concierge medicine in particular gets maybe muddled or unclear is this idea that you have this access to your clinician, and so you get to use it. And concierge medicine still needs to be driven by the clinical decision making that we make no matter what sort of system we're in. You wouldn't blanket see everyone once a week because that's not clinically appropriate for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still making clinically appropriate decisions. What's different is the availability to touch base, send messages, work through whether or not a meeting or a treatment, sooner than originally
Mm-hmm.
scheduled is still clinically appropriate. You have a bit more access, direct access, as opposed to if I call in my corporate health system to, let's say, my kid's doctor, and I need to call, I end up talking to a nurse who does not take the message as I've given it. So then the nurse calls me back and misses me, despite my saying I'm not available at this time. They call me at the time I'm not available. This did happen, by the way. And then
I was going to say, this sounds
right,
like
that's oddly
an
specific
act
because
that you are grinding.
a little bit, right? So then I get on the phone and say, hey, look, I'm still trying to get a hold of this doctor. Will you tell me what this is about? I have told you what this is about. I do need to talk this through with my child's
Mhm.
doctor. He saw him yesterday. Right. And then you're able to get through the red tape. And I'm saying this as a person who, has worked in this healthcare system and knows the players involved. And it's still really hard to talk to my clinician,
Mhm.
especially in the cases of, care for minors, because they disrupt the access for medical messaging, which is a sort of a close parallel or close-ish
Mhm.
parallel in corporate healthcare to being able to have that access, but you still have a person in between. So in concierge medicine, we really reduce that friction and that administrative layer so that the individuals have clear access to us and we can make very quick clinical decisions. And I think in concierge medicine, we also tend to keep our panels smaller. We know our folks, very deeply and can kind of anticipate what might be going on. So and
Mhm.
that way, I think concierge medicine it's important to distinguish it. I actually think, Michael, one of the things that we didn't talk about and haven't talked about in this episode is really not concierge medicine and the difficulty holding the boundaries, although certainly it's a risk. It's actually, I think, working in these smaller geographic areas, and especially when you see a clientele that lives in the same area. Now let's talk about family enmeshment and, people popping up in unexpected places. We've dealt with this for a long time, right? And both you and I,
Mhm.
Dan, have worked in small areas where, maybe we are the psychologist that is providing services, or you serve a particular role, and then you end up at the Best Buy, or you need a sign painted, or whatever it is, and your client is the person who's here in front of you. And now that becomes, I think, sometimes a trickier boundary to negotiate because you know something clinically about this person, but you're out in the world and we have laws that protect your identity. And quite frankly, we want to have our own lives too. We don't want this bleeding over. And so making sure that we're balancing that in that local way, I think is often harder for clinicians, or maybe for me, I'll speak for myself, than concierge care.
Right. Agreed. I have nothing more to add to that.
Okay.
Well stated.
Fair. Yeah. So I like that thinking about the small community piece of it. I hadn't considered that. You're right. That you run into people and you might have those, you might be asked on the spot about something that you weren't prepared because you're in your personal life then. So I guess really what I'm hearing is that, the problem with What About Bob is, um, his need is not the problem. It's the lack of firm boundaries and not defining those well. That Bob sees the boundaries as blurry. His psychiatrist, in this case, seems to struggle with them as well and doesn't provide that kind of structure for Bob to kind
Well,
of
I mean,
operate in.
my memory is he tries to, but he does it in a way that is personal, right?
Yeah.
He is annoyed and
Yeah.
he is rejecting, which is increasing symptomology, not helping Bob, in this case, manage
And we can't do that. I mean, a big part of the task. Yes. Is a therapist ever annoyed, frustrated, happy?
Yeah.
Like, do we have feelings of, gosh, this is someone I'd really love have a beer with sometime? Do we get like, oh wow, this person is frustrating to me? Yeah, of course we're gonna have feelings about people we talk with, or and it's our task to continue to treat them in the most appropriate way with the proper amount of distance. And if we can't do that, as Gail, as you mentioned earlier, if I can't do that, it's my job to refer that person to someone who can, because I can't let my own shit interfere with. And therapists do this all the time. After losing a partner or a divorce or a particularly difficult time with a child, they may choose to not work with people who have similar issues for a period of time because they don't believe they can maintain that distance, which is really critical. Therapy should never be about me and my stuff. It's got to be about my clients' issues.
Awesome.
Well, now, can I correct the record? I just set the record straight. My little Bob here, my fish. I did not create him with the idea of representing the movie. It was a total accident, but I had done this craft, and I usually do one for myself before I give it to someone else. And I thought it was funny to give my kids' classroom teachers a fish that the kids couldn't kill over the summer. So I thought this was kind of funny. And then I had made one for myself, put it in my office, and someone referenced the movie. And I thought, that's funny. I need to name my fish Bob. So it was a hilarious after effect.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us on That Would Never Work in Therapy, or maybe it would. I don't know. Next time, we'll check out another moment in pop culture and see what they do with it.
I think people sometimes underestimate how stressful life transitions are. Maybe not challenging life transitions, but good life transitions.
Absolutely.
Starting a new job that's positive. People expect that it's going to be, it's a new job, it's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. We experience stress as human beings, right? And we very easily use that word stress when something bad happens. But actually in our field and our work, we have something else that we call eustress. And eustress, EU, is this idea of good stress, right? And that affects the body very similarly. All of this just entails like big changes, even when you bring home that new baby or you got that promotion.
Any change is going to stress us. And if you're experiencing a change and you're struggling with that change, reach out. We're at veritasppe.com.
You don't have to do these changes alone.
All right, we're gonna do a Am I the Asshole with Dan and Gail. I know, super surprise.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's definitely been our longest running segment.
Yeah.
Before it was our only segment.
That's not true. We always had the bonus conversation.
That's true. All right, fair enough.
What was the main dish?
For anyone who this is their first episode and they're like, what the hell is this? Michael, me, has gone out to the internet and found a scenario where essentially somebody has recounted something that occurred and asked who is the asshole. Often they're looking for validation, like, hey, am I the asshole? Hopefully not. And I've gone through and I've de-identified it slightly so it's a little more discreet. And I'm going to throw it to our two psychologists and see what they have to say about the scenario. Today's prompt is, am I the asshole for not contacting the school to get my daughter into a talent show that she didn't qualify for?
No.
Wait, what? She didn't qualify for a talent show, and you're supposed to call
feel
the
like
school
this is
to.
a double negative.
You're supposed to call the school to get her into a talent show that she didn't qualify for in the first place. No,
Wow.
no, she didn't qualify.
It took you a minute to get there, Dan.
She didn't qualify for the talent show. Like, it's not. So my assumption, and it may not be a fair assumption, my assumption is going to be something like, oh, my daughter didn't qualify for the talent show, and some other person said that I should have called the school and demanded she get included because she's like the best whatever at whatever thing ever, and now everyone's mad at me for not calling and being pushy about it. And I'm like, no, she didn't make it. Like, anyway.
Wow.
Scenario.
All right. This is what we got.
All right.
So the prompt is, I'll be quick. My daughter is in the 3rd grade and she tried out for the talent show. It is the end of the year show. In short, she didn't get in. The school is too big, and if they let everyone in, that there would be there for hours. She was very upset about it and had been crying. My wife wants me to fight the school and to get her into the talent show. I told her no, and this started an argument. I think it's good for kids to face failure, and she thinks I'm heartless. I told her she can do what she wants, but I will not back her up on this. Am I the asshole?
No.
No.
No. 3rd graders, we want to have like a little bit of heartbreak and an awe moment that she didn't make it in. And I totally agree. But I agree with this other parent, the OP, that has said, failure is a lesson. And our job now as parents is to help this 3rd grader cope with these big feelings that she may be having about not getting in, not to bully the school into doing something different. And I have a problem with OP's wife that is demanding that this be done, but she's not going to do it. I don't understand that disconnect. If you are passionate enough about doing a thing, why can't you do it?
And he didn't tell her he didn't tell her you can't do this, which he would, by the way, if he said, I disagree with you, you should not do it, and tells her she's not allowed to do it, then he would be the asshole because he would be telling her what to do and he doesn't have that right. At the same time, he absolutely has the right to say, I don't agree with this and I won't do it. Even if she was right to say it, even if she was right to like the daughter should have been included, if he was choosing not to because he felt it was not appropriate, he gets to say no.
Right. I mean, say the 3rd grader is home ill that day and she has the most beautiful, dance and it's perfect. And she's going to qualify for, the national ballet in the 3rd grade. Like, she's a dance prodigy. I don't know. I'm making this shit up as I go, but she's home that day and not able to try out. And therefore she gets cut because she's not there. Still the consequence. It's just still the outcome. We don't bully our way into a 3rd grade talent show, and it's not going to do the daughter any good.
No,
and
it's not.
Quite frankly, no scholarships are being given out at this talent show. Why are we so adamant that we protect her from feelings and that experience and get her into the 3rd grade talent show? I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's the 3rd grade talent show.
This takes us, and it would be great if she was able to say, but this takes us back, Gail, to a favorite book of both of ours.
Oh.
Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. And children love this book, and they love the book because nothing good happens all day long, and there's no happy ending to it. He just goes to bed at the end of the day.
Right.
And it's it really is. And because we can all relate with having And the author of this book, by the way, is a psychotherapist or a psychologist who also wrote a book called Necessary Losses, and but that's more aimed at professionals, and it's about and others. It's about the necessary losses. Like, it's good for us to some degree, like, have recognized that sometimes we have a shitty day, or we lose the talent contest, or we don't get to be in it, or our team, goes out on the field and gets destroyed on the soccer field or whatever. And these things happen sometimes. Like, it's
the opportunity is to build compassion, right? I mean, if you won all of the time and you got to be on stage all of the time, where is your capacity to understand and be compassionate with people who don't get those opportunities, right? Where is your opportunity to go, well, I tried out for that and I was going to do a set of 5-minute stand-up jokes, and I realized that the jokes I brought weren't funny. And so if I want to be a comedian at 3rd grade for the 4th grade talent show, I need new material. I want to work on this. It's going to push me maybe to work on making my skill set better. And the argument might be, well, she'll never do it again because she faced failure. Where is the opportunity to teach resilience? Resilience is a factor that is taught, right? It's not just innate. It's about having a community, feeling safe enough to belong, to know that failure is temporary and is an opportunity for learning. And I feel adamant about this because I do think over generations, we have done a couple of things. One is, when I was a kid and in teenage years, early 20s, I heard a lot about helicopter parenting, the parent that jumps into the situation and fixes it for the kid. But now we see snowplow parenting, and snowplow parenting are parents that come along before the actual adverse event happens and removes all barriers out of the way so that the kid has this easy time. All of this comes from a good and loving place. We understand why parents want to make a better world, a more comfortable world for our children. That's not the question. Is that good for them? And I don't think it is. I think we need to sit with the discomfort that our kids are going to experience discomfort.
Right. And we can recognize and acknowledge, and I'm totally on OP's side in this particular scenario, that he should not. And I would respectfully, in his position, respectfully say, but this is not a bad thing for our daughter to fail, and I would rather you not call the school. However, if mom wants to call the school, mom can call the school. I will tell you, I just imagining like the person answering that call, like, they're gonna get a message and they're gonna get that little slip of paper. I don't know, do they even make those little pink things anymore? Probably not.
No, they do.
They do have little
at our kids' elementary school, those existed.
Pink piece of paper, and then and the teacher gets this, like, oh geez, I want little Emma to be in the program and she wasn't included, and I demand she. And like, I can see the teacher looking at it going, oh, I gotta call this mom or this dad. In this case, it's a mom, but I gotta call this parent and tell them that, like, no, and they're gonna be mad at me. Like, I feel for the teacher in this situation. This poor teacher who's running the talent show, had to make some decisions about some kids. And if you've been to a talent show or like a ballet recital or a piano recital, if you're my kid, don't listen. Those things are interminable sometimes. You're sitting interminable, really too fucking long.
Yeah.
And you're like, and every parent's are like, yay, my kid. And you're like, oh no. Now I gotta wait for it's great. If my apologies to anyone who's listening. Like, but no, sometimes I think every parent is sitting there going, okay, my kid's done. Like, can I? Okay, I'll stay.
Yeah. No, it's really difficult. And if this were an experience designed for all of the kids in the school, they would have broken it up differently, and it would have been a talent show by class or something like that.
And maybe they should have done that. I'm down with that.
That was a school decision,
but
and
the school,
now we're going to navigate within the community that we are in, and this happens to be an entire school instead of just a classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, the internet is definitely, well, I assume then your verdicts are not the asshole.
Not the asshole.
That,
and in fact, I'll go so far as to say I worry that wife at least mildly dickish to asshole, because she is insisting that her partner or this child's other parent call the school, and she is foisting that responsibility onto somebody else. I think that's truly problematic. Again, with the details as told.
Yes.
Yeah. So the internet definitely agrees with you there. That your They're definitely in the camp of not the asshole. There are a few people who asked for additional information, and their questions were like, "Well, was she good?" Which was hilarious.
Sure.
And the OP slash father had to say like, "I wasn't there. I don't know how she performed in the moment. I can tell
Mhm.
you like as objectively as I can as her father that at home I thought she did a good job, but I wasn't there on the day, so I don't know." And there were like these side conversations about like trying to tease out like whether she anyway, which were kind of fun.
Incredibly fair on OP's part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He seemed
Yeah.
to do a really good job of navigating that. So like when I hear, yes, as presented, I feel like this is probably pretty objective.
Okay.
The
No, I like
few
that. I like that.
the
You do get this
few
like, my brilliant child.
Right. No, the litmus test is the response. Like, yeah, I think she did a good job, but I don't know. I wasn't there in the moment, as opposed to absolutely I'm going to defend my kid. Da, da, da.
the minority people that did say you're the asshole were making an assumption that the daughter was there when this argument happened with the wife, and maybe she was or not,
Mm, shouldn't
and
have been, by the
how
way.
terrible it might be to hear your father say that you're not good enough. And so there's a lot of assumption about what was actually said in
There's
that
an
moment.
assumption that he said that. If, let's say, let's twist the facts for a moment. Let's say she was there and she shouldn't have been. And she was. I think there is still a loving way to deliver that information,
Hmm.
which is for me has always been about walking that balance with my kids in terms of respecting and demonstrating my respect for my child's teacher and school community and the rules and the boundaries that they set up that are outside
Hmm.
of my control. And while would have loved it to be different, and I thought their academic performance or their talent show performance was wonderful and I was thoroughly entertained. However, right, in this difficult situation, this is where we need
Hmm.
to align our behavior. I think we can send that message to a third grader, and it can
Yeah.
be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
My favorite kind of points or side conversations that came up is that they've cited a number of um, famous examples or examples of famous people who talk about rejection. And Stephen King's one of those people who talks about the folders and folders of rejection letters that he has,
Hmm.
and how he framed rejection letters not as proof of failing, that it was proof of becoming better and more skilled. That the fewer as it funneled to fewer rejections, he perceived he was getting better than initially on. And I guess in Star Trek, Picard made a comment about perfect effort does not guarantee a perfect outcome.
Hmm.
And a lot of people who are Trekkies specifically reference that in parenting. Like you can do a perfect job, but that doesn't mean the outcome is going to be what you want, whether you're the parent or the child in this scenario trying to perform. So those are kind of interesting. There was also one aside of this person who shared perhaps the attempt to make everybody happy at their school, which was there was a choir performance, but it was lip synced. So all of the children, so this way, nobody sounded out of tune or was embarrassing or had to remember the words. Everybody was just lip syncing along to a pre recorded thing of the children performing.
Oh
It's
Oh,
no. No, I'm not okay with that. I'm sorry.
no.
Part of the joy of this is, I mean, I've been to enough sixth grade band concerts. Like, part of the joy is that your ears are bleeding by the end of that sixth grade band concert, but the kids are all out there giving it their all. And then the seventh grade band concert, well, your ears are still bleeding. But then you start getting into the ninth or tenth, and they're like, wow, that sounds like it's a facsimile of music. And then you start listening more and more, and as you get to see this wonderful develop, and by the time they're finishing up, and I've had a lot of band kids, like you're hearing this beautiful pieces of music being played wonderfully, and it's like it's part of that process, and I don't want them to be perfect. Um, so
And,
I'm
I think
not
the
down with that.
opportunities to be on stage and be imperfect
Mm-hmm.
create the confidence for you
Yeah.
to do what you then do, and like you said, in the 11th and 12th grade.
Yeah. So
So
wonderful. No, I not no, don't no lip syncing. Let
no.
them let them
And
have their
then
moment.
kind of the last point I'll share really goes along with the snow plowing that Gail was talking about. The poster said, next she'll have you call her first choice college or email a professor or call the job that she didn't get. Like, where does this stop essentially? She needs to learn early, and you need to teach her resilience, to your
Yes.
point, right? To overcome those
Hmm.
difficulties that she will face at some point.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's exactly. I totally agree. And no, no, dad's not the asshole. I'm annoyed with mom. I don't know if she's an asshole or not, but I'm annoyed with her with the perspective. And I think that, while the talent show could have been set up differently, I'm fine with this, with dad's behavior.
thank you both for going through Am I the Asshole debate with me. I always appreciate your perspective and what you bring to the conversation.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Gail, sometimes get these really challenging calls from couples, and they're saying, I don't even know if we should stay together or separate. I don't know if counseling is even has any chance or is worth the effort. Do I bail or do I try to work on this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great place to use something called discernment counseling. It's a very specific, very time limited intervention that helps couples in a really structured way before they sort of try at therapy and then maybe fail because they're not really in the right space. So this makes sure that you're in the right space before you try to do something really, really hard, which is working on your relationship or sometimes making the decision to walk away.
So it sounds like what you're saying is it's less couples therapy than like, is this marriage something or this relationship something that I should be putting the effort into, or are we already done and maybe it's just time to step back and figure it out. So there that in between place that
Yeah, I
couples are
mean, I
in.
think sometimes it's just hard to get clarity when you're in the middle of all of that. And one of the things I really enjoy about doing discernment counseling is creating some non-judgmental space just to talk these
Mhm.
things through in a really neutral way with someone who doesn't have, a stake in one way or another. So you don't get pushed, you just get the space to figure out where are you actually and what is the next right decision for you.
So it's just a few sessions, like five. But what are the possible outcomes of these like five or fewer sessions when you see folks for discernment?
Well, in discernment counseling, we talk about three paths. Path one being stay as things are, and you actually don't do anything. You don't separate, you don't work on it. But I mean, let's face it, when you've gone through discernment counseling, something has already changed.
Mhm.
Path two, which is separation or divorce, and path three is an all out commitment to work for 6 months. And if you want to know more, I would slide over to the website. We've got some more information. Certainly can get people in to work on this. We're at veritaspp.com.
Welcome to Two Therapists Walk Into A, where we take a real life situation, a cultural moment, or a total ordinary mess, and we run through it with a therapist's lens. Not to
Total ordinary mess, by the way. I love
Total ordinary. That is sounds like parenting.
our intent is not to diagnose it, but to name some of the dynamics, to translate what's actually happening under the surface, and hopefully, reflect on common scenarios that people could react to. So, anyway, are you up for that?
No,
Of course.
I'm out. Oh,
No,
sorry.
no.
All right, so this one I'm going to call Two Therapists Walk Into a Family Group Text. It's where
Ooh.
there's passive
Wait,
aggression
how many
thriving.
family members?
Well, don't give it away. Just launch, man.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Um, so, what's the healthiest way to disengage from a toxic group text without blowing up the family system? That's the question. If you want more
Okay.
context or wind up, I can give you
Yeah,
that. But
I think we will need more context.
I think we need more wind up. Absolutely.
well, I'm just thinking about those scenarios where you have it's not a regular family group text, but it's one where, a couple times a year, for some reason, you're thrust into a group of 8 to 10 family members where you're trying to coordinate something, or somebody is sharing information for whatever reason.
Oh, we have
And
one of those right now. We got one just last night. A member of the family, who I will refer to with a pseudonym of my wife Michelle, sent a message out to like family, hey, we're gonna try to get together this week. Who's available? And I think there were about, I have to check, but there probably were 7 people on it.
That tracks.
Is that the
Well, here,
is that what we're talking about, Michael?
I mean, yes,
but
bigger
he's
scenario
talking
I
with
than
a
guess
that.
political or like edgy bend where someone says or does
Yeah,
something that's maybe a little fringe.
I'm waiting on that. I'm
well,
waiting on that.
what I was
I just
thinking.
want to say that like I have this experience. I mean, we all have the
Yeah,
experience, but I've
and
got one. I've got a live one right now.
I want a little bit more clarification
Yes.
in your brain, Michael. Is this involving sort of immediate family members, or are we talking about immediate family members plus their respective partners? So now we have sort of the in-law kind of situation.
I'm picturing that, and,
The,
All right,
the
so
messier version.
your example where you're trying to coordinate something is perfect. So
Yeah.
it
Great.
is on the
What's the scenario?
surface. Yeah, on the surface, it's innocuous, right? It is a big group text where you have included a bunch of people that you don't always get in the same virtual space, but here they are, and you're
Okay.
trying to have this one conversation, but it then also is an opportunity for those other people to act in passive aggressive manners,
But-
maybe dodge the question that's being asked if it's about arranging a scenario. And then also, it then is a platform like, oh, here are all these people. Every once in a while you get somebody who's just like, I'm going to share this random link with you now. And you're like, why is this in here? This isn't what the topic is
So
about.
this is a chat that's gone off the rails.
Oh, so
That's what
okay,
I'm
so we're
thinking,
not
yes.
talking a specific scenario. We're talking
No, I
about
just mean these
oh,
group chats in general
Oh.
that, and that dynamic. And then how do you like navigate or kind of extract yourself from one that has gone awry?
I recently heard someone say, and I'm really curious about this, and maybe our listeners can chime in, that every group text like that exists has a subgroup text where the people in the group text have like want to talk without 1 or 2 people, and if you're not in that subgroup text, like if you don't know
You're
about a
that guy.
subgroup text, you're the one who's been
You're
excluded.
the
Now,
guy.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's accurate or not, but it has me suddenly a little paranoid.
I think the bigger the group and the
Mhm.
more diffuse the relationships, I
Mhm.
suspect that you're right, Dan, that there's a subgroup of people within the group that are closer, that are having a side conversation. I mean, this strikes me as not terribly dislike the, annual family reunion gathering at some, random park, and everyone, sits down at tables with people that they don't necessarily see more than once a year. And
Mhm.
Uncle so and so starts saying something, and everyone's like, what? And and how do you disengage? I don't know that disengagement via text looks all that different than disengagement IRL, as the kids like to used to
Right,
say. I think
right,
it's a really
right.
dated term. But in real life, how do you shut down either an inappropriate conversation or disengage from that? I think in text there's a version of what you would do in person.
Right.
And then typically we have a sub chat, right? You go off and you
Right.
find the preferred family member and you chat with them and you think, oh, save me from X, Y,
Mhm.
Z. So, I think it depends on the context and how active. I know I've been a part of group chats and I'm working and I cannot have my phone blowing up every 30 seconds to, a minute and a half. And it's just too much. And I've seen families say, pardon me, I'm at work. I need to be deleted from this group. And that has felt, appropriate. I can't keep doing that. I think you can silence your own notifications as well and just, subtly remove yourself.
I see nothing wrong with, and I do this sometimes, these groups, especially during my work day. I don't want my phone like blowing up. Sometimes just mute it. Like this is,
Yeah.
I don't mean to overly simplify this, but I'm going to overly simplify it. There is nothing about that little like 7 or 23 that sits next to the app that says you have to freaking do anything about it. Like just
Right.
mute it. ignore it if it's gone off the rails. If someone specifically has a question, like at the end of the day, scroll through it. Oh, there's Dan. Someone's asked someone is like at Dan, like they have a
Mhm.
question. Fine. I don't think anyone in these group threads is going to get annoyed or frustrated because one person or two people has chosen to fall silent for a little while, and I have no issue with that sort of thing, and do it sometimes in chats that I'm like, I don't really care about this, like,
Yeah. But let's
so.
say you're trying to arrange a big family dinner and you want this extended family to come
Mhm.
together for a purpose, somebody's birthday, and it's a milestone birthday, and you're going to make a dinner reservation and you want to
Mhm.
know if XYZ date will work for everyone. And you've got to get the reservation in. And then you've got all of these other side conversations and, and it's going off the rails, but the purpose is this, let's say, birthday gathering, something that's not
Right.
terribly
I,
um, controversial.
hopefully you have the family culture that lets you say, dudes, like, can we figure out what restaurant we're going to? Like, do what I just did. I interrupted
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
to say that. And there's nothing wrong, I think, in a group text of saying that if the family is in a situation where they can be honest and direct with one another, and not necessarily like dickish, but just saying like, hey, like, thank you for the cat meme. It's great. But like, can we figure out whether we're doing pizza or Thai and for dinner and like it, then we can get back to the cat stuff. I
Yeah.
I I don't see
But what
anything
if you
wrong
don't
with
want to be
just
a
being
part of the
direct about
cat
it.
stuff? Like
Hmm?
let's say you don't want to be a part of the cat stuff, right? So we get dinner settled, and now this thread is just lit up
I know.
because people don't interact very often, and now they're really getting a dopamine hit from interacting and sending these cat memes or the equivalent of the
What?
1990s version of forwarding, that funny email or whatever.
No,
And like, do you say like now take me off this thread because I
no,
don't, or do you just mute the thread?
no. Just
What do you
just
do?
don't piss on anyone's cornflakes. Like they're having a good time. Let them have their good time. I can mute a thread and then come back to it later, and it takes me like, I don't know, 5 seconds to click the little button that takes you to the bottom of the thread that marks everything as read, and then you're done. Like, why would I want to rain on their parade? I see no, I there are all sorts of threads that I don't necessarily attend to, and I scroll to the bottom and done with them. So
Okay.
I think people getting too worked up here about like following the rules, like just ignore the
And,
cat stuff, which I
and
do.
I will add, I think these tend to fizzle fairly quickly. So I think,
Yeah,
in general, if you are getting kind of activated because this is happening, it can seem like it's going on for a really long time. And you see the 23 at the bottom of your, or at the little corner of your app or whatever, and you feel really upset about this. But I think it also bears remembering that sense of overwhelm is part of what is like heightening your emotional
right.
reaction and kind of remembering that this wasn't a thing before. This isn't a routine thing. This isn't a pattern that is establishing itself for the long term. This is novel. Humans like novelty. And with that, when that no longer is novel, I think it'll settle down, and reminding yourself of the temporary nature is often a really good coping strategy through something that you might find difficult or onerous.
Right. Well, the other thing here is we talk about this idea of when I'm troubled by something, I want to sit down and figure out, on is it on other people to stop doing what they're doing because they're out of line, or is it on me to cope with this differently? And sometimes it's on them to like, no, they're acting inappropriately or they're causing problems, they're hurting, they're being harmful or whatever. Then I should be speaking out and going, hey, dudes, like really? Or really objecting strenuously in other ways. But if people are having a good time and it's not really like causing harm, but I'm just a bit annoyed by it, that's on me to figure out how not to be annoyed by something that's pretty innocuous. I mean, if it's my family, it is deteriorated into pictures of what our cats are doing at that moment. And why would that? I can ignore that. I don't need to ask them to stop sending cat pictures. Like that seems like I feel like I'd be the asshole in that situation if I'm trying to rain on their parade and take away their enjoyment when it really is super simple for me just to like scroll to the bottom and mark as red.
Yeah, especially when it's not happening in real time. So we're doing it via text, right? And then I think I always go back to that because I really liked the book, the Art of the Gathering. Why are we here doing the thing? Why are we in this thread having this conversation? And what's appropriate for this context? I think in other settings, when we're, let's say, at the park at the family reunion, we might respond a little bit different just because now it's happening in real time and you can't pause that thread. And as you said, I think the content matters. Are we sharing what our cats are doing right now? And is that appropriate for what we're doing?
Always.
Oh, maybe.
I mean,
right?
if it's my cats, yeah, absolutely.
Also,
it's always.
But you also might find yourself in real life having a really time limited amount of time going, well, like we're gathering here for this purpose. So
no, I get that.
Let's put those in the thread and handle what's in front of us. So I think like you have context matters is kind of what I'm really getting at, right? And I think 100%. In the text thread, because you don't have to deal with it immediately, it's not urgent. You don't need to change anything or do anything right now. Then yes, we can tolerate a little bit of that, off topicness, as long as we can also agree we're going to come back to topic and get business done.
Now we do have in our particular family,
the cat thread.
Well, we have a more chit chatty thread, so I'm not worried about the what are we doing this week thread getting polluted in our particular family because we've already.
But you have a cultural norm.
We do. We have a cultural norm. Yeah, the cats go in this
until someone totally disregards the cultural norm, picks up their device, and randomly chooses which platform and which thread they're going to respond on.
And you know what? That's fine. I don't care. It's fine. I'm not going to like.
No, then you lose information potentially.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I can read, so I'm not worried about it.
Good.
Well, I mean, so thank you both. I mean, first of all, our cats are fighting currently. They're running around wildly down here, hissing at each other and running around, which I love. And what I heard, and I wanted to interject, but I didn't want to interrupt in the moment, was when you talked about the subgroup texts. I couldn't help but hear subtexts. And so the subtext is over here, which kind of made me laugh.
And the subtext of the sub, yeah. And now you're making my head hurt.
Sorry. But anyway, what I'm hearing, though, is the goal is not to win the group text, right? It's to stay regulated and act like you would in a room with these people, respond to what matters, ignore the extra. And if it starts turning into, I don't know, like performance art or something, you're allowed to step out.
Right.
Is that fair?
Totally. And I think that goes for text threads that are not family. I've certainly been in text threads of people who are unrelated, and you just maintain decorum in that thread. Don't show your ass.
Awesome. Great advice.
Well stated.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. We'll see if we do this again. But as always, I appreciate your willingness to try something new.
So what's the connective tissue here? It's that access without boundaries turns into pressure. And what about Bob? The whole comedy depends on boundary collapse. And when you look at concierge care through that lens, the warning is obvious. If the model encourages unlimited access, the work can slide from treatment into caretaking and from support into dependence. Ethical care can be warm and responsive, but it still needs structure. Structure is what makes help sustainable. In the Am I the Asshole talent show situation, the same pattern shows up in parenting. Protection can be loving, but if every disappointment becomes a battle, the child learns that regulation comes from outside and not inside. On the other side, if resilience becomes rigidity, a child can feel dismissed. The repair is not picking a winner. It's naming the shared goal, agreeing on the lesson you want your child to learn, and presenting a united front, even when you disagree privately. And in the family group text, access is constant and accountability is blurry. People perform, misread tone, react before they reflect. Sometimes the healthiest move is a boundary that looks boring. Fewer replies, slower replies, or no replies, paired with a clean off-ramp that keeps dignity intact. If you take one thing away from today, take this. Boundaries are not distance, they're design. They let care stay care instead of becoming control, guilt, or burnout. I'm Michael McBride with Veritas Views. Thanks for spending time with us. Check us out next week, and of course, like, follow, and share.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gail McBride at Dr. G. McBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael McBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. McBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.